Greetings to the academic event organizers, my fellow paper presenters, and participants of the National Training Workshop on Research Writing and Accreditation organized by the Philippine Institute of 21st Century Educators. I am Dr. Galahad Randall Unciano, an independent research specialist and consultant of the Gichuary Research Consultancy in Social Sciences, Urdaneta City, Pangasinan. I am thankful for this opportunity to publicly present my recently completed study in this formal gathering of educators, academicians, and scholars from different institutions. My study is entitled Use of Invective in Online Verbal Aggression Among Filipino Social Media Expressive Contributors Engaged in Effective Political Discourse. Political corruption is a severe and persistent issue in the Philippines according to international rankings. In 2024, the Philippines ranked 114th out of 180 countries in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, or CPI. For over a decade, the country's score has fluctuated but showed very little overall improvement, indicating a lack of significant progress in curbing corruption. In this current year, 2025, massive protests erupted across the Philippines following investigations into major corruption scandals involving flood control projects. The scandal centers on allegations of ghost projects, substandard construction, inflated costs, and kickbacks amounting to billions of pesos. The ongoing corruption scandal is perceived to be the biggest or worst corruption scandal in Philippine history. In terms of financial scale, reports allege that up to 500 billion pesos intended for flood control was lost to ghost projects and corruption. Former Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio described it as the biggest corruption scandal in history, eclipsing even past martial law corruption. Public outrage has intensified on social media, fueled by the contrast between citizens suffering from deadly floods and the luxurious lifestyles of some officials' relatives. Social media was flooded with mocking hashtags, driving the conversation and amplifying public anger. The speed and reach of social media platforms like Facebook have allowed this outrage to spread rapidly and intensely. Viral posts and videos mocking officials as crocodiles, a symbol of greed, have galvanized online aggression. Social media made the public outrage over the flood control scandal more visible and immediate. It has lowered the barrier for participation, allowing anyone with a phone and an internet connection to amplify the issue. Decades of unpunished corruption have eroded public trust and led to deep frustration with the justice system. For many, online verbal aggression becomes a form of protest and an expression of outrage when official accountability seems out of reach. I conceptualized this study in cognizance of several research gaps. To this day, there is still a dearth of research trying to understand the nature and causes of online verbal aggression, or OVA. My extensive literature review also reveals that there seems to be limited interest and participation of language researchers and scholars on issues involving OVA, as many of the studies on OVA anchor on other academic fields, thereby limiting the interdisciplinary involvement of language researchers in this phenomenon. I conceptualized this study anchoring on the significance of its educational implications for language education curriculum in both basic and higher education. It highlights the communicative realities of the digital age, suggesting a need for a curriculum that addresses this reality. This study advances the insight that language curriculum should incorporate a descriptive approach, acknowledging and analyzing how language is actually used in digital environments. Beyond the interest of education, this study is also significant as it contributes to theoretically inform policies on the regulation of online behavior. This study also signifies to efforts in peddling awareness raising on the effects of OVA to political discourse. This study also signifies to raising awareness on the effects of OVA to national value formation and cultural refinement. The current slide shows the intersection of sustainable development goals in the framework of my study. My study signifies to SDG 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions, SDG 4 on quality education, and SDG 3 on good health and well-being, specifically focused on mental health and well-being in online environments. Developing the framework of my study entailed my extensive review and digest of related literature, most of which were accessed online. This was devoted to understanding the key concepts and theories in my study, which are thematically shown in these slides. The objective that I pursued in this study was that I identify the political purposes that stimulate the production of verbal aggressive posts of Filipino Facebook users engaged in effective online discourse over political corruption. I categorize the invective language manifested in the posts in terms of form and strategies. I also compared the accounts of different types of social media aggressive expressive contributors or SMEC. Finally, I offered actionable insights as a guide for deploying this pilot research as a larger scale study. The chronological order of linguistic investigations in my study is guided by a series of research questions. My study advanced four specific research questions that it aimed to answer. These research questions are shown on the screen. Insights gained from the results of linguistic analysis served as basis for me to generate the research output, which is a descriptive language model, or DLM. Coining the name of the DLM that I generated in this study, I called it the Descriptive Language Model of Filipino Online Verbal Aggression, or DLM FOVA. This DLM showcases a culture-specific descriptive linguistics that characterizes Filipinos' language use in social media, intertwined with their affective language use in political discourse. This DLM features linguistic regularities or predictable patterns of language use among Filipinos in exploiting emotions for political purposes in online spaces. My research registers as an individual interdisciplinary research project with its intersection of different academic fields such as applied linguistics, social psychology, and sociology. This research is also designed as a pilot study, which is mainly intended to assess the research protocol and methodology for its subsequent deployment as a large-scale study. This study utilized Corpus Linguistic Analysis, or CLA. Inherent in this analytical framework is the use of embedded mixed methods research design. An embedded mixed methods research design involves collecting and analyzing both quantitative and qualitative data, but with one method playing a dominant primary role and the other playing a subordinate or supportive role. The secondary or embedded data is used to provide additional context, explain or enrich the findings of the primary method. As a mixed methods study, both the qualitative and quantitative methods of analysis are exploited. This study employed the qualitative method of pragmatic analysis and the quantitative method of descriptive comparison alongside other descriptive statistical methods. The unit of analysis in this study is the written corpus. In the context of my study, I extracted samples of aggressive Facebook posts, which are actually Facebook posts expressing verbal aggression authored by Filipinos that I treated as corpus samples. In determining the number of corpus samples, I used non-probability sampling techniques that combine purposive sampling and convenience sampling. I imposed a set of inclusion criteria to guide my selection of Facebook posts. The criteria are flashed on the screen. My own Facebook posts were not included. The table flash on the screen shows that my small-scale pilot study utilized a total of 60 distinct Facebook posts treated as corpus samples. This number of corpus samples are evenly distributed to three types of social media expressive contributors or SMEC. The SMEC types are number one, government officials, number two, media personalities, and number three, regular citizens. My study used a specialized analysis tool called the Analytic Rubric for Social Media Invectives or RSME to enable the categorization of the corpus samples. I was the one who developed this analysis tool. As one of the ethical considerations in my study, I used coding to refer to the FB post to secure confidentiality in the identity of the authors. Flashed on this screen are graphic organizers that illustrate my research findings on the frequency distribution of corpus samples based on the political purpose of the online verbal aggression. This slide shows my research findings on the frequency distribution of corpus samples based on the manifestation of invective forms. This slide shows my research findings on the frequency distribution of corpus samples authored by the three SMEC types based on the political purpose of their OVA. The numerical values shown in the previous slides are configured to bar graphs to lend an instant visual impression of the separate accounts of the different types of SMEC. I will be clicking on for a quick slide of the rest of my graphic organizers reflecting the results from the different data analysis that I carried out. As you will notice that I use different modes of data presentation such as tables, bar graphs, and pie graphs. Actual samples from the list of the analyzed Facebook posts are also shown. From the results and findings of my study, I drew the following conclusions. When engaged in political discourse, Filipino social media expressive contributors or SMECs express online verbal aggression to pursue a variety of political purposes. Filipino SMECs post online verbal aggression or OVA on Facebook as they are prompted by four distinct political purposes. Number one, character assassination. Number two, discrediting arguments. Number three, rallying for support. And number four, expressing outrage. Filipino SMEC's OVA are predominantly motivated by a desire to express outrage over unjust political circumstances or situations. There is also a remarkable number of OVA posts intended to cause character assassination focused on political personalities. OVA posts are least devoted to discrediting arguments. Filipinos Mex OVA manifests three different ways of using invective language. Number one, solely using high invective or HI. Number two, solely using low invective or LI. And number three, combining high and low invective or HI-LI. Use of low invective is predominantly manifested by the OVAs in general, which is indicative of low sophistication in expressing verbal aggression. Different types of SMEC express OVA on Facebook for varied political purposes. The highest frequency of OVA posts by government officials express outrage, while those of media personalities are intended for character assassination, whereas those from regular citizens depict a balance between expressing outrage and character assassination. Certain SMEC types have higher preferences over others when deciding over specific political purposes for expressing OVA. For instance, regular citizens have higher frequencies of OVA posts motivated by character assassination and expressing outrage, while government officials are much more motivated by discrediting arguments and rallying for support. Different types of SMEC express OVA by frequently using certain forms of invective language. The OVA of government officials manifests the sole use of high invectives more frequently, while media personalities and regular citizens manifest the sole use of low invective more frequently. Frequency in using invective forms differ across the OVA posts by different types of SMECs. The use of high invective differ for each type of SMEC based on their choice of strategies to render the invective. The use of low invective differ for each type of SMEC based on their choice of strategies for rendering the invective. Findings suggest the possibility that political purpose for expressing OVA may have a causal effect over the choice of invective form. A quick glance on my research output, I developed a descriptive language model and called it the Descriptive Language Model of Filipino Online Verbal Aggression. This model is presented with two parts. The first part discusses insights about the model, and the second part enumerates and explains the language patterns. Flashed on the screen is a graphic representation of my descriptive language model. These next slides contain my discussions about the model. My study casts its impact and practical implications on policy and management efforts directed to combating online verbal aggression. My study also casts its impact and practical implications on global efforts that promote mental health, especially from the effects of online environments. My study also casts its impact and practical implications on our national interest in the preservation of Filipino culture. My study also casts its impact and practical implications on our democratic interest to encourage and at the same time regulate citizens' participation in political discourse over corruption. Recommendations of my study address the need to reinforce policy and governance of online behavior by concerned government agencies and other institutions and instrumentalities. My study also endorses the benefits in the curriculum integration of social media education for both basic and higher education. My study also endorses the favorable integration of lessons related to online communication dynamics in language courses, whether it be Filipino or English language courses. These are the actionable insights generated after completing my study, wherein I came up with recommendations to improve data collection, refine and extend the depth of the research questions, and propose additional statistical analysis of data. These recommendations are suited when this research is finally deployed as a full-scale study. I find this research feasible to be deployed as a large-scale study based on its sound conceptual and theoretical framework. However, I also realized the need to refine the study and improve its framework. Thus, I came up with three sets of recommendations to enhance the study in terms of number one, research questions and methods of data analysis. Number two, the corpus sampling method. Number three, its instrumentation, which refers to the analytical method. In executing this research as a large-scale study, a larger amount of corpus will be accommodated. This will enable the application of inferential statistical analysis over the larger data sets, such as the use of chi-square test of independence. Also, the use of causal inference methods such as the counterfactual framework, which involves propensity score matching informed by a directed acyclic graph. And also the use of one-way analysis of variance, or ANOVA. The large-scale study may also include a component of gender analysis. This slide shows the set of recommendations to improve the corpus sampling method. This slide shows the set of recommendations to improve the study's instrumentation or its analysis tool. Showing these slides for an overview of my literature references and citations. In closing my presentation, I express my deep gratitude to good friends who offered financial sponsorship in support to the broad dissemination and public presentation of this research. Thank you very much for listening.